from the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Welcome, everybody, to Talking Catholic. You're listening to the official podcast of the Catholic community of South Jersey. Thanks for joining us. I'm Pete Sanchez, and as always is Michael Walsh. We're back. We're back in the vault.
Yeah. We moved all of 15 feet from the my conference room back into the vault, the friendly confines of the vault. I have to say, when we don't record here, I kind of miss it. I really do. It's very cozy and messy and cozy.
Yeah, it's definitely a more intimate feel. It was really nice to get we had there were about 10 people last week. Mm-hmm. So this week, there's 4 of us around the table. It's I don't know. I still find it hard. It was a nice Thanksgiving break with family.
Did you just transition from talking about the podcast to the Thanksgiving break?
I did.
Did you do that because our last podcast was about Thanksgiving?
It was.
Okay, just wanted to tie all those things together.
Well, what I was trying to say is you talked about missing the vault. I did, but at the same time, I enjoyed the time home. I enjoyed the time their Thanksgiving break with my family.
Oh, you mean not being in the vault?
Yes.
I mean, you enjoyed not working for a short period of time.
Yes, having some leisure time.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that. But I'm also going to pause now and say, since one of our guests is on regularly, and she's now reached the pantheon of the unofficial third co-host level of being on the podcast, Mary McCusker is also here with us, since we're going to be talking about Catholic Charities today. And there's no sense of keeping her in reserve, since she has lots of comments and will always come to Pete's defense whenever my sarcasm targets him.
So I'll start by saying that it sounds like you keep Pete in the vault for way too long.
I don't
keep him locked up in here.
Are you kidding me? Pete would be in here. We would record podcasts all day, every day if Pete had his choice. He loves the podcast.
It is. It's true. It's true, Mike. I love you. You are.
Oh, that's disturbing.
As my co-host.
That I don't like that. No, but he's come to me with a number of different ideas for different podcasts to do, and I keep coming up with ideas for podcasts that don't feature Pete. So I think he's trying to get annoyed about that. But no, it's true though. It's true. Hey, listen, I've also talked to Mary McCusker about starting a podcast all her own. I have. We talked about that. And then Marianela Nunez, another one of our former guests. So
that's exciting.
I have not. I've not. It is. As a matter of fact, I gave her a little guff yesterday because, I've been promising this Spanish language podcast for a while, and she just hasn't been able to sort of get any traction on it. So I gave her a little shot yesterday, going, "Hey, I'm really looking forward to that Spanish language podcast coming out." And, so hopefully, in the new year, we can get that thing ramped up.
I'm excited for that. I'm excited to listen to that.
Me too, because I really want to learn Spanish, and I'm going to use that as my stepping stone to learning Spanish.
Well, Duolingo too. Duolingo is wonderful. Muy bien. Muy bien es magnifico utility, tool, I think that's, if I screwed it up, I'm sorry. I was trying to say tool.
No bueno.
No bueno.
Okay.
Tu aprendes? Do you understand?
Look at them struggling. This is so much fun. It's like watching to steal a line from Iron Man 2. It's like watching 2 seals fighting over a grape. It's
pretty much.
That was wrong.
We're trying to talk Spanish, but Mary, how are you doing? How was your break?
It was all right. Thanksgiving was nice. It was drama-free, which is a first. In many years, so
that's good.
It was low key.
Yeah.
My whole family met my new dog, so that was exciting.
Nice.
There were no fights, so all in all, it was good.
Wow.
Same here.
I feel bad that there wasn't more drama.
I have no drama stories this year.
Same thing with me. It was lots of. I've ended Thanksgiving week 4 pounds heavier. So woo! Thank God for good cooking. I very much appreciated that. I had to finish off an entire apple pie, or I guess 80% of an apple pie.
You had to finish.
Hey, listen,
don't make excuses.
There is no
now.
such thing as being food wasteful in my house. It's like you eat it. If it's made, you eat it. And I'm the only one in the house that eats pie. So my mom had brought a whole bunch of delicious pies to Thanksgiving dinner, And then there were only 2 slices taken out of the apple pie, but we kept it at the house, and that was a couple of breakfasts and a couple of desserts was apple pie. By the way, for anyone who's wondering, apple pie is a great breakfast. Really gets you ready for the day.
You know, any type of pie, pecan pie.
Oh, yeah. Pie is, jeez, so pie.
It is, yeah, I had a lot. And you know what's neat? We had turkey on Thursday, and then we had family. It was at my parents' house, so I visited them on Thursday. And then on Friday, they had dinner again. They brought out the ham. So they made a ham and went with the leftover turkey and the butternut squash.
That's good stuff right there.
Second Thanksgiving, practically.
I like it.
It worked out.
And was everyone thankful during Thanksgiving, or did we just chow down?
Of course we were thankful,
yeah.
Mike.
Oh, really? I just chowed down. I didn't.
Well,
I was about to ask, because you should ask yourself that question.
Very nice.
But like the food never stopped at my house. First it was a cheese platter with the olives, with the crackers. And then it was the Bacardi drink, the strawberry drink.
What's a Bacardi strawberry
Bacardi.
drink? Bacardi and strawberries drink?
Well, Bacardi rum.
Yeah.
They make these frozen Bacardi strawberry drink packets.
Oh.
Mix. You can put it in a blender, add some Bacardi rum, and it's delicious. My family makes it every Thanksgiving. It's cold. It's delicious. That's just what I...
Oh, that sounds... I have no idea what you're talking about, but I think it's...
I'll make it for you one time, Mike.
That's okay.
No.
I'm not a rum
During
guy.
the podcast.
Yeah, that's
you
it.
should spice things up a little
Do
bit.
you know what I'm talking
the
about?
thing you really want me to do
No,
is...
I'm sorry. I know Bacardi, but why do these
Okay.
podcasts always end up talking about food?
I don't know. I think
Every time
I
we
like
go
food.
off
It's
the
good.
we want to
rails.
make this a
Awesome.
food and drink podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe.
All
With
right,
Catholic,
we'll
we could totally... There's a book called Drinking with the Saints.
Okay.
I should reference that.
I think there's a book called Drinking with the Sinners, too. But, we can drink with them both.
Well, I'm more sinner than saint. So.
Aren't we all, though, Pete? Aren't we all? Speaking of sinning, what do we got coming up?
Sinning. Well, this is exciting. Like, we are celebrating Advent this weekend. This is the new liturgical season, getting ready for Christ's coming. I'm really looking forward to this, Mike. It's a time of renewal for myself. I'm just ready. I'm ready to kind of dive into a lot of different stuff.
I get the impression that you're inclined to make it almost more Lenten this year, in the sense of reflective and thinking about how to better oneself. Like we often think of because the Advent season is actually intended to be like that, particularly the first 2 weeks. But very rarely do any of us. The mad crush of the Christmas season upon you. Those first couple of weeks, we're just trying to figure out, where to put the tree. Seriously, it's.
I agree.
What presents to buy?
I think I have a small little tree in my place. It's artificial. That's going to be up eventually, and I think now I agree though. It's a time of preparation, especially the next 2 weeks, are really focused on the second coming of Christ. If you listen to the Gospels,
that's right,
and their mass readings.
And if you want more information on that, you can go back to our last year's pre-Advent episode with Father Robert Sinatra, where we talked about that in detail. But it's always good to refresh it as well. And by the way, if you're new to the podcast, go back and listen to those old ones. They're really good, and they're all available for free on SoundCloud.
Yeah, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes. And what's neat, Mike, also in this season, coming up December 8th, is a holy day of obligation, the Immaculate Conception of the Blessed Virgin Mary. This solemnity, we remember, this is almost something I keep forgetting what the Immaculate Conception is. I don't know if you have that problem.
I did when I was a kid. I think I know what it is now.
Well, it's Mary's conception in her mother's womb. It isn't the conception of Jesus. It's Mary's own conception in her mother Anne's womb.
Don't be embarrassed by that. And lots of people make that mistake.
I don't know. I can only speak for myself. But Mary was born without the stain of original sin.
And that's what we celebrate for the Immaculate Conception. Yeah.
And she's a holy woman, and also the woman who carried our Savior. She was a vessel for our Savior. So that is a holy day. I do not think that can be. That's on a Saturday, but I don't believe it can be transferred. It's one of those that you have to go to Mass, right?
I actually don't know the answer to that question. That's a good question.
If any priests out there can help us, let us call in. We should make this a call-in show eventually,
Sure.
Mike.
No.
But for more info on Advent, go to the usccb.org/Advent website. For more, and they even have prayers. And what's neat, too, is they have the prayer of the Advent wreath, the prayer of the tree, and something coming up also. This more immediate this Sunday, December 2nd at Divine Mercy Parish in Vineland. We've talked about this for a bit now. The Diocesan Office of Hispanic Ministry is inviting all to a Share the Journey celebration with Bishop Dennis Sullivan. That will be a Eucharistic liturgy, a special torch procession that connects with the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And again, this is going to be this Sunday from 3 to 6 p.m. at Divine Mercy Parish in Vineland at 23 West Chestnut Avenue, Vineland.
You're going to be there? Pete, are you going to be there?
I will not be there, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm not sure if my schedule's going to work out either, which is a real bummer because it's a great event.
I might be there briefly because I know some of our Catholic Charities staff who have been to the border will be attending.
Excellent.
Oh, that's what, Share the Journey, of course. That is
Right.
the message of this. And yeah, Mary, you've been to Texas.
The border.
Yeah, you've been how many times now?
One, and that it's tentative, but that might change. I might be going back again in January.
Yippee.
We'll see.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. We'll get out of the cold and, that'd be nice.
Yeah, that is the right time to go.
That's
January.
true, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
But it's also...
Only 90 degrees.
But no, that's really good. I'm glad you're going back because you were there on the first trip when it was sort of a fact-finding mission. I think
Right.
I can see everyone who has been on this trip so far has all come back with such great stories. I
Right.
think it'll be wonderful. And will you be? Is the idea to go down and do a little more video and photography while you're down there?
Yes,
Good.
definitely. And it's exciting because, well, exciting and sad because all the people who are going are college students, and it made me realize I will be one of the oldest people on the trip.
Oh,
share your
that's
wisdom.
funny.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah,
one way to look
You'll
at
be
it.
the wise older leader. It'll be nice.
Oh, well,
The
that's
nearly
a lot of
the
responsibility.
nearly 30-year-old in charge of all these young people.
I guess 26 is pushing 30.
It's all, hey, listen, it's all a matter of perspective.
I'm 36. I'm pushing the other side of 40. I realized that last year. I'm closer to 40 than I am to 30. But
They say men are happiest in their 40s and women are happiest in their 30s. So
that's
good decades lie ahead of us, Pete.
Amen. I will drink eventually to that. with
Bacardi?
Some Bacardi, yeah. But Mike, we got in Atlantic City coming up, the Advent Day Reflection, another awesome Advent event with the Franciscan Sisters of the Renewal at the parish of St. Monica. It's going to be at St. Michael's Church in Atlantic City beginning at 10 a.m. with Mass, a talk by a Franciscan Friar of the Renewal, lunch, Eucharistic Adoration, Confessions, a healing service, and benediction. I'm excited to be there. The sisters are wonderful.
Yeah.
Are you going to be there?
I am hopeful. That is my father's birthday weekend, so I don't know if I will
That's
be
right.
there.
That's right.
I'm hopeful. I've missed it every year they've offered it, though. I've missed everything they've ever offered, and I'm quite upset, except for the one street evangelization event they did that I went down to cover, which was amazing. That's the thing, is like every time we go to anything that the sisters are a part of, it is always a remarkable experience. So I am very much looking forward to it.
And we'll be down there tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about it more next week, but we'll be down there tomorrow for the dedication of the Benedict House in Mass with Bishop Sullivan. They're just such wonderful, inspiring faces, and they're all youthful. They're all young, and they're joyful presences. I'm always filled up when I see them. They're just always so, they inspire me every day.
Yeah.
And so, this, they'll be joining us on December 14th, Mike, for the 100th episode of Talking Catholic.
They
And
will.
Mary will be there, too.
Mary will be there as
Yes,
well.
I will. And so will Mr. Hickey. He told me today.
Yes. The executive director of Catholic Charities is going to be with us that day. So we're very much looking
Wonderful.
forward to it. We'll have to be on. I'd hate to bore Mr. Hickey.
No, I think we'll that's going to be at the Collegium Center for Faith and Culture. I on the White Horse Pike in Haddon Heights. Again, Friday, December 14th at 7 p.m. Could be a lot of fun. We just announced the Franciscan Sisters are going to be there. Father Rob Sinatra is going to be there. Jeff Shields is going to be there. Forgotten Truth, we had him on the podcast about a month ago.
Yep.
He'll be providing the music with his band Forgotten Truth. So register on Eventbrite or go to CamdenDiocese.org for that info and for all of these events and more that we said for the news items.
So, Pete, now that we've done a 15-and-a-half-minute intro, who is our guest today?
Well, I'm welcoming. I had the pleasure of talking to this.
Why am I having you introduce him? Mary, who's our guest today? A coworker of yours. You can do a proper introduction.
Our guest today is Marcus Biddle, who is a senior case manager at Catholic Charities, and I think we were hired around the same time 2.5 years ago.
I believe we were, actually.
I remember
yeah.
sitting in the HR seminar with you.
Yeah, man. How long has it been now? 2 years now?
2 years?
2.5
a little over 2 years.
Yeah. I have no idea where time went.
That's a good sign.
Me neither.
That's it. When you're not counting down the days, that means you're probably where you're supposed to be. It's when you know exactly the day you came, and that's when you're not in a good spot.
This is true.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
We specifically want to have you on because we first of all, we love having Catholic Charities folks on. We very much enjoy talking to people about the service aspect of the faith. But in particular, you've done a couple of things recently that they're always fascinating, and most recently was a deployment. Can you tell us a little bit about the deployment?
Yeah. So I was deployed December 10th down to Pensacola, Florida for the Hurricane Michael disaster relief effort. Me along with maybe roughly about 8 other Catholic Charities USA members, and I was down there for about a week and a half. The work was very, very broad, so a lot of what I primarily did while I was down there was intensive case management, which could range anywhere from helping the residents in the Panhandle near Panama City, which is actually one thing I forgot to mention, is that I was stationed in Panama City and Panama City Beach, which is sort of where the crux of the hurricane hit once it hit Florida. And a lot of my work just entitled helping people find employment, helping people find housing. I was working out of a high school in Panama City Beach called J.R. Arnold High School, which essentially became the shelter for most of the people that were displaced because of the hurricane. So it was some pretty intense work for the week and a half that I was down there, but I was really, really fortunate to be down there to help when I did.
And were you there with a lot of other Catholic charities? Because I think the way it works, and Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, basically Catholic Charities USA puts out, when these disasters happen, they basically put out a call, and each of the Catholic Charities locations can send people down to help, right?
Yes. And actually, just a few months ago, I know every staff member at Catholic Charities had to fill out a survey where you pretty much list certain skills, everything from languages that you speak to machines that you can operate to certifications that you have, like CPR, everything across the board. And it was really great that was it CCUSA that put together, or? Yeah,
CCUSA. So some of the backstory of how I got involved with this is that I actually had volunteered to go down to Puerto Rico after the hurricane last year, and that fell through for a myriad of different reasons. One, I think there was sort of this, you probably heard on the news of the administration saying that they were thinking about pulling aid out of Puerto Rico, which was kind of a shame because one of the issues I know at that time was the fact that they were having a hard time getting people down there to begin with because most of the power hadn't even been restored yet. So I had volunteered for that. I got in contact with them. They were like, okay, we're gonna just keep you in the loop, let you know when you might get deployed down, which didn't happen. And then I actually got a phone call actually from Andy Zamuda, and he's like, hey, would you be interested in deploying down to Florida? I was like, great, when? He's like, in a week? And I was like, oh.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, okay, sure. So I got connected with that. I ended up not going within a week, but they had 2 different deployments down. They had one that was towards the end of October, and then they had another one which was between the 1st and 2nd week of November, which is when I went down.
Yeah,
so,
man.
Yeah.
And that's not uncommon. These actually sounds like you had more time than a lot of people have had. I think we talked once where somebody was deployed within 24, 48 hours,
Yes.
something like that. Yeah, some of these deployments can be pretty quick depending on the severity of the situation, right? Yeah. So, but that's really a great opportunity that we have talked to Mr. Hickey about from time to time. That this is something that he really advocates for, is the Catholic Charities staff members. Not that you have to go down, but he certainly appreciates the fact that there's a willingness amongst the Catholic Charities members to go down. I know you've offered to go down several times, Mary.
Right.
But you haven't had the opportunity yet.
Well, maybe I'm lacking in certain skill sets that are necessary for disaster
I would
case
not believe that.
management.
You have
You're
handled.
definitely very patient, Mary.
Yeah, and
With
you're
me.
Well, that.
No one saw the grin on his face, but believe me, he was smirking from ear to ear. But I know, Marcus, you do have this skill set for case management.
Well, you do.
Because you work with the veterans program.
Yeah.
Did you see any overlap with the work you do?
It's actually it's so funny you mentioned that, because when I went down there, there was actually a gentleman I met who lost his home. It's completely destroyed. The roof had basically caved. I think it was in a two-story home, and the roof had basically caved into the living room on the first floor, and lost everything that he had. And he was a veteran, and he was a really, really, really just really neat guy. And he's like, yeah, I'm a veteran, and I'm not really connected to like the VA or anything like that for services. And I was like, well, guess what? I actually work for the Veterans Services Program, mind you, in New Jersey. It's like, I think I might be able to help you out. And we sat for about maybe an hour. We were just looking up some places to that were renting out at the time, because that was the other kind of hard thing about going down there, was that a lot of people that wanted to find housing had to look outside of Panama City and Panama City Beach, which is in Bay County. So you had folks that were looking for housing in Orlando and Tallahassee, and I could talk about that a little bit later. But
Is that far?
Tallahassee from Panama City Beach is about roughly 160 miles.
Wow.
It's a big move.
That's not easy.
No, it's not easy at all. But fortunately for this guy, there was one home in particular that had been open in Panama City, and I called up the landlord. I was like, hey, I got this vet that I'm working with. You could probably help him out. And wouldn't you know, the last day that I was down there, he came up to me. He's like, guess what? I got that place. I'm moving in in 2 days.
That's
I was like,
awesome.
wow.
That is
It was a really tear jerk moment. 'Cause I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, that actually happened.
Yeah, that was serendipitous.
Yeah. So, but in the work that I do, with working with veterans now, you kind of learn some of the tricks of the trade of case management and rapid rehousing, which comes to use when you're doing something such as disaster relief and case management. It's just you have a very small window, obviously, and that can be a challenging part.
Yeah.
How many people came through when you were at the school? How many people came through while you were assigned there? Estimated.
We had the shelter estimated between 800 to 900 people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 800 to 900 people that were admitted into the shelter, and that was the day after the hurricane.
Yeah.
So a lot of people.
goodness.
When I left, they were down to about 300. But
Okay.
the big issue was that, let's say for every 10 people that exited the shelter, they would get 5 more people that came into the shelter. And the biggest problem that they were facing was that there were a lot of people that had been previously homeless that weren't directly affected by the hurricane, in the sense that they didn't lose belongings or their home or their motor home and things like that. But they were already kind of looking for a place to stay and shelter. So they hear about, a high school that's offering food and a bed, and they come in, and, FEMA and the Red Cross have to turn people away because they want to centralize it around, this is for people that lost their home and that were a resident of Bay County.
Yeah.
I was curious about that, the existing homeless population versus people who had homes and then lost everything. And how do you even go about managing that and screening people, especially when people lose their documents and their homes and they can't prove anything? I mean, all those little things, it just must be a nightmare.
That's the thing that's really amazing about situations like that. There's actually, what people don't usually realize is how many layers of in an event like that there really are, that you really have to take into account, which is why I suspect that Catholic Charities does this, is because you really need to have people that can go there and have a real idea, A, be flexible enough to take care of the situation, and B, and as well be knowledgeable enough to take care of the situation, even for someone who I'd like to believe, or I don't like to believe, but I assume hasn't spent a lot of time in Florida doing social work.
I was actually, believe it or not, not doing social work, but this was my 3rd time in Florida.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was in Tampa for the O'Grady Institute Leadership Conference earlier in April. I was actually in Miami in the 2nd week of October because my program was having a rapid rehousing conference. And then, I get the phone call about going down to Pensacola. So,
You're just sipping martinis on the beach
Florida,
down there.
I will say this. Florida is such an interesting community to me, and you meet people that range from, people that live on the countryside, people that live in the city, the suburbs, and it's so fascinating because in a way I feel like in all 3 of the trips that I've gone, I've experienced different parts of Florida. Bay County is much more of like a countryside of Florida, and it's just really, really, really interesting community and a really great community down there.
Yeah. But you have a background in this. I mean, you did not come to Catholic Charities, right out of college or out of off the street. You sort of have a background, right?
Yeah. So back in 2016, I should back up just a tad bit. When I was graduating college in 2015, I had an interest in the Peace Corps. I don't know what possessed me to, think that, but I thought, I can go away from, the United States for about 2 years and work in a country that I've never been to before. Yeah. I think I was that idealistic at the time. And then someone that I gotten connected to in one of my classes, my urban studies classes, had told me about this opportunity in Camden to be an AmeriCorps volunteer. And so I volunteered with, between 2 organizations. One was the Camden Coalition of Healthcare Providers and Cooper Hospital. And the partnership was between AmeriCorps and Community Health Corps. So I did AmeriCorps, and I worked primarily out of Cooper Hospital at the Urban Health Institute downtown. But my official role was complex care manager, which is kind of a nice way of calling me a social worker without actually calling me one. And I only say that just because my office in particular, and things have probably changed since I worked there, but we did not really have a licensed social worker on our floor at all. And so they relied heavily on the AmeriCorps that would come in and would see clients after their hospital follow-up visits and say, hey, this person needs help with housing, this person needs help with transportation, this patient of mine needs employment, can you help them out?
Yeah.
And the the thing that kind of became stressful about it was that my desk was located. You know how when you go to when you go to the hospital, you see your doctor, and then he gives you a prescription and he says, okay, I need you to wait and check out. So my desk was right beside the checkout line.
Yeah.
So everyone saw me every single day.
Yeah.
The only way I had to
Sounds
break
like
is
a
if
lot.
I actually just got up and just said, you know what, I need something to eat right now, and I can't do this at this moment. So I do have some background in case management, and it's definitely been pretty valuable to what I've been doing right now.
Well, it certainly sounds like you wanted to do Peace Corps, you did do AmeriCorps, you're now working at Catholic Charities, you've been deployed. I feel like you're going down a path that seems to be right inside your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I'm still kind of, being 26, I still feel like I'm kind of like in this like bubble of ambiguity right now.
Been there, my
Where,
friend.
yeah.
I think you're supposed to be there when you're 26.
Yeah, and that's true. But I've always wanted to do nonprofit management at some point. I really got interested in nonprofit work because when I was a senior in college, I was actually I minored in journalism, and I heard about this organization in Philly called One Step Away, and they were a newspaper run by the homeless community in Philadelphia, and essentially they would write stories about what was happening in their communities, and the papers that they sold to people, they would get a profit of that money back to help them get out of homelessness. Kind of like a social enterprise sort of
awesome.
model that the nonprofit was working
Away.
on.
I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, and the neat thing about it was that I only thought that it was an idea that was located just in Philly, and I did more research and I found out about basically an international homeless newspaper organization, and found out that there were thousands of these different organizations all over the globe. And in fact, when I went to Germany my senior year, I bought one of the newspapers when I was in Hamburg, Germany, and met one of the gentlemen that was homeless and had written a story about his life in Hamburg. So
yeah, it's a fascinating story. I talked to those guys all the time when I worked in Center City. They were always selling papers outside of our my high-rise location, and so I'd sit and chat with them. It was funny that I remember flipping through the paper once and realizing that the guy I had just been talking to, because they would sell and distribute the papers outside, was one of the writers for the paper, and he wrote his great writing skills. And I don't know what a percentage of it was, but I knew a lot of them. It was a great jumping off point for them to move on to other things. So it gave them a sense of purpose and something to do, and they really felt invested in it. And it, more importantly, it gave them an ability to go somewhere else with. So it's a great thing.
Yeah, it's a great. I mean, and I mean that's always been one of my interests. I mean, writing to me is just another tool of advocacy that people can use to tell their stories. And I think I've taken a lot of what I've done with writing into sort of my work even now, and my listening skills of just kind of getting detail for detail someone's story in their life, and it's really interesting to me.
We have a newspaper in the diocese that you can always submit to.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't act like you didn't know about that.
Well, I did. So I know we have I did not know that you could submit.
Sure.
Maybe
Mary's just been blocking you all the time.
Probably.
She wants to be the only writer in the paper, but that's
she's gonna think I'm gonna make movie
You're
critiques or
sending
something.
them to Mary. Mary's like, sure, I'll send that.
Yeah.
But no, you can
Throws it
submit
in the
absolutely.
trash
Yeah. She always does this thing. Mary always does this thing where
Oh,
I
boy, here we
ask
go.
her about something, and she's like, "Sure." And she like gives me this look like, "Sure." What? You do sometimes without
Where's
realizing
this malice coming from, Mark?
it. No malice at all.
Gosh.
No malice. It's just a very
being descriptive.
You're dropping this on me on a podcast? You couldn't have
It's
waited
not like
to
I don't
when-
talk to you about some of
You
this
had the
stuff.
whole car ride, the whole 2-minute car ride to unleash
I thought
your
this
true
would be,
feelings.
That's because
More
we
exciting.
he understands
Save it
we
for the-
save it for air. That's what we do. We save
Well,
it for air.
glad I know.
We're almost up to Festivus, the grieving of
Airing of
the airing of grievances.
Is
Yeah,
that what you-
the airing of grievances. So it's perfect.
Full
This is the right
disclosure, ever since I've met Mary, We have this thing where
This is now my new favorite podcast episode.
if
Getting
she
out.
likes something, I generally, I'm confused. But when I like something, she automatically doesn't like it. It's gotten to that point now, especially with movies.
No, we have very different tastes, and
Are you claiming
there's a
that
bit
she's
of a
contrarian?
Yes,
Whoa,
exactly.
whoa,
That's,
no, I said it first.
that was actually the word I was going for.
Marcus.
there.
Contrarian?
If
I like it.
there was
That's
ever
good.
a contrarian, I'd have to say it would be
Oh
you.
my goodness.
Oh, these are like two peas in a pod. I like this. we never get, they're not a couple, but I like this couple fight. This is nice. I like this. I want this more often.
Yeah,
This is good.
Marcus,
It's at
you
this
were
sound- this-
welcome back. I love this.
Pete, this must be what it's like when you and I are bickering on the podcast. This is awesome.
I think I'm looking.
I knew we were
at
I
the
right.
mirror
will,
right now,
I will
Mike.
say this. I had a very strange moment. I was talking to Mike Lasky about a couple of weeks ago, who's obviously moving on to things down in DC right now.
Yeah.
But we were talking about the Eagles season so far, and I think he called me a sports contrarian. And the first thing I did is I went to
All
Mary
right,
and I was
Lasky.
like. I was like, hey, guess what, Mary? Someone actually called me a contrarian, but I think it was apropos for that moment.
Uh-huh.
I think
what
you
is-
just called me a contrarian just because it's just.
She wanted to win the argument.
Yeah.
Now, why doesn't everyone just take turns hitting me with the 2x4 at this point?
These are not too. First of all, I prefer to attack Pete.
Yeah,
but I am
this is
enjoying letting somebody else.
interesting.
I'm telling you, we're
Pete,
just.
savor this while
You
it
know
lasts.
I don't know.
That's why he's not interrupting. He's like,
Yes.
you're sharing my agony now, Mary.
it's perfect.
Now, Marcus, how did you get to work with? Speak a bit about your work with veterans. How did that come about? Why did you decide to take that on?
Well, about a couple of months removed from my exit in AmeriCorps, I was job hunting pretty aggressively. I did not want to settle. I wanted to stay in the city of Camden, and any kind of work that connected me to the city, I was on board for. And I got an email from one of my coordinators in AmeriCorps, and there was a job posting for a veteran services program at Catholic Charities Diocese of Camden, and I think my first reaction was, I've never really actually worked with veterans before. I don't think this is going to actually be for me, but knowing my personality, I kind of snapped myself back to reality, and I said, this might be actually a new and interesting opportunity to pursue. And so I had called Mark Taylor, who is now working for the VA, and but the first meeting I had with Mark was actually very, very funny, because we found out that we basically had lived in the same town in Wilmington, Delaware.
Wow.
As a matter of fact,
way.
he tested me. He's like, okay, what street did you live on? I said, I lived on such and such street. And he's like, oh my God, you lived in Wilmington, Delaware. And we were talking about all these like random facts and stuff like that. Like there was this one place in Wilmington that they moved out to Las Vegas. It was called Kahunaville. It was basically kind of like Dave and Buster's, but kind of Hawaiian themed. And we just randomly started talking about how awesome that was and how many times I went there when I was a kid, and I was like, wow, this is a really actually cool guy to be a cool guy to work with. And he called me that day and he was like, can you work in August? I was like, sure. And he's like, great, you're hired.
Wow.
So that's how I got started with the Veteran Service Program, and I think in retrospect now, one of the things that I think really drew me into it was the fact that my grandfather had been a World War II veteran. I have an uncle that's an Air Force veteran. I have another cousin that's a Marine veteran, and so. And as a matter of fact, even at my home, we still have the folded flag from my grandfather's funeral that we keep downstairs. And I don't think there's too many days where I don't look at his portrait. So that really drew me in. It became very personal, and it was a really good, it was good timing for one, because it was an opportunity that came up right before I exited AmeriCorps, but it was also very personal, I think, in the end. And so I pursued the opportunity right away.
And that's a population that really needs good services. It's a population that unfortunately has often easily been taken advantage of, or the opposite. It's a very testosterone filled group of people, and sometimes they don't know to ask for help.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately in the society we live in, where we try to prevent wars, they are almost predictable.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like, there's just a new generation of soldiers that have been deployed and then returned back. So, of course, right now, the generation that is needing the most help is soldiers that fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so it's one of those things where it's always, hopefully it never is a need, but it's always going to be a need where we're assisting veterans who are coming back, or who have served. I mean, I've met veterans that have served in Vietnam, and you hear some of their stories about their experiences, and it gives you chills, really.
Yeah.
And so there's a need there. And I think especially now, one of the big things that we are doing in our program, besides just rapid rehousing, is also employment opportunities for veterans that are either disabled or are literally homeless and are looking for new opportunities to kind of get back into society in a way that's very meaningful to them. So those two aspects of veteran services, I think, are absolutely huge right now. Yeah. And it's gonna stay for a while.
How many, is there an estimate, can you say how many veterans you've seen in your work? Is there an estimation how many are in South Jersey that have come for assistance?
Well, for our program in particular, we see we enroll about 280 veterans per fiscal year, which is a lot.
Is that the entire veteran service program? Because it's divided into two.
For supportive service for veteran families, which is the program that I work out of, it's about that number.
And then the other program is, can you describe that one a little bit? It gets a little bit confusing because the program is divided into two different programs.
Right. Yeah, right. So the other program is called HVRP. It's called Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program, which both of the programs, SSVF and HVRP, are both national programs that are federally funded by the VA. Well, no, actually, I shouldn't say it. Let me back up. HVRP is funded primarily through the Department of Labor in conjunction with the VA. So those two programs right now are under the Veteran Services umbrella that we have at the Diocese of Camden. And there are others that are also localized in other agencies outside of the state of New Jersey even. In fact, one of the reasons I was able to help the gentleman I was talking about earlier in Panama City was because I had connected with a United Way program in Florida that had an SSVF program. And so it was a kind of a good connection that we made at that moment to help him out. Mm-hmm. And so when push comes to shove, we do try to coordinate with each other, all the different various programs, and of course it's good too because we have conferences like the one in Miami that I was talking about, where we share different ideas about what are the specific needs in, say, New Jersey or Pennsylvania or Florida. So there's a lot of synergy going on.
That's good that it's nationwide too, especially when it comes to disaster management, because we had the people from all over the country working from Catholic Charities who were deployed to the Carolinas. And then people were deployed to Florida, and some of those people had to be redeployed to California because of the fires. So it's good to hear that these programs do exist nationally, with all these people being displaced from their homes.
Yeah, and it's actually just I was just thinking of that too this morning, because the day I left, I had befriended a few people from FEMA and the Red Cross, because one gentleman in particular I'm thinking of from FEMA said, well, looks like we might be seeing you in California soon, because we have to go next week.
Wow.
So yeah, and in the Carolinas in particular, I think a lot of people right now aren't talking too much or maybe enough about North Carolina. North Carolina got hit very, very hard by the hurricane, because it's essentially, once the hurricane made a loop from the panhandle up to the northeast, it hovered over North Carolina for a pretty substantial amount of time. And so the unfortunate thing about having all these disasters happen, it almost seems like seemingly at once, is that right now in Florida, you gotta not in Florida, in North Carolina, you have to manage that you have to imagine that there is a bit of understaffing that is going on right now because of the needs in Florida and also California right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's also, you have to take into consideration the staff who work at the different Catholic Charities agencies in the affected areas. A lot of their homes have been wiped out, and so they can't come to work. Their cars are gone, or their homes are gone.
Catholic Charities.
So, they're understaffed, and that's why, there's this nationwide call to other dioceses,
I can confirm that Catholic Charities in Northwest Florida's offices basically destroyed right now.
Oh my goodness.
Here's a question for somebody like me who is doesn't work with Catholic Charities but wants to help in some way. Like, say I wanted to say, hey, I want to go down and help or donate, or what can our listeners, how can they do their part to help California, North Carolina, Florida?
Well, in Florida in particular, some of the basic... Well, let me preface it by saying this. In Panama City, where I was located in, I don't have the exact statistics on the poverty rate in Panama City, but Panama City in particular is a relatively underserved community. So a lot of the needs that existed months ago have been exacerbated to this point with the hurricane. So a lot of that has included clothing. A lot of that has included just one of the big things that's going on right now is actually having transportation to get people from point A to point B out of Panama City, which, by the way, I'll put in a plug right now. FEMA and Red Cross absolutely loved Catholic Charities down in Florida.
That's great.
Mostly because since there was a point where I think Bay County had some trepidation about transporting people out of the shelter to, say, Mississippi or Orlando, Florida, as one gentleman had to go. We were primarily taking over the transportation duties. So local Catholic Charities actually had to rent out a vehicle and basically shuttled people from the Greyhound station in Fort Walton, which is about, I think, roughly 50 miles from the shelter to Fort Walton. But a lot of the needs right now, are clothing. I would highly recommend donating to Red Cross as well, because Red Cross, in my opinion, has been doing some pretty good work there. Mary's giving me that look.
I love the Red Cross.
Mary also works on the development end of communication. She's
Yes,
like,
I do.
She's like, no, don't send donors elsewhere. but there, I mean, in all fairness, the truth of the matter is that, more concisely answer Pete's question, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, really the best way to help organizations is to donate funding, because the truth of the matter is when you're down in it, getting truckloads of supplies oftentimes can be a logistical nightmare, and it really makes it easier if you can provide them with funds so that they can go out and find specifically how to respond to certain situations.
Yeah, and I was actually their local economies too, which have.
I was actually gonna follow up that by saying as well, Catholic Charities Northwest in Florida definitely needs a lot of assistance right now. It was almost kind of sad to leave the way we did, because we did about maybe roughly 20 to 30 intakes a day on clients and different clients, by the way, on folks that needed housing. And where do all of those intakes go? They go directly to the local Catholic Charities office down in Northwest. So any kind of assistance or funding would be greatly needed for them, especially now with most of their property being destroyed completely. They're really trying to work as hard as they can, to work wherever they can, to help provide housing assistance for people that have lost their homes, their belongings, sometimes in some cases even family members as well. Two stories that really kind of stood out to me when I was down there. I met a gentleman who had flown from Oregon to Atlanta and then had a pickup truck and drove from Atlanta to Panama City to volunteer with the disaster relief efforts.
Oh my goodness.
And the amazing part about it is I was like, well, what organization are you affiliated with? He's like, I'm not affiliated with any organization right now. I was like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, I came out because I really wanted to help with the disaster relief effort down here. And I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
See, Pete, you could have done that.
I need a pickup truck.
You need a pickup truck.
That is. I used to be involved in a volunteer organization when I was in high school, and we had a definition for people like that. They're called the extremers, which is basically going above and beyond limits to help other people, and it's really amazing. And the one story that also kind of comes to mind, just because I know right now one of the biggest things the local Catholic Charities is doing now is counseling as well for families. There was a gentleman I had met just very, very briefly, who his father and his brother had been living in the same house for about a couple of years. And the father, who was elderly, actually suffered a heart attack on the day of the hurricane. Oh, no. And so when he came up to, I was volunteering at a local Catholic church down there that was kind of like Catholic Charities Northwest station. He just came up and we were, distributing food and water and things like that. And he was showing me his father's death certificate and cause of death. And he said to me, he says, I'm basically so poor right now that we haven't even had a chance to, bury my father at this point, to give him a proper funeral. And that was one of the more intense stories that I had heard down there. And so there's a lot of needs that besides just food and clothing and funds that are needed down there. And so whatever anyone wants to do to help, however creative or crazy you think the idea might be, it's definitely needed.
And Mary, just to save Marcus's bacon when Mr. Hickey hears about the fact that he suggested people go to the Salvation Army, or Red Cross rather, where can people donate for Catholic Charities?
If people wish to donate, they can just log on to CatholicCharitiesUSA.org, and you will see pictures pop right up, and a donate button there. And if you kind of look at the website and read that message, that is the disaster relief fund that they allocate those funds to where it's needed most. So CatholicCharitiesUSA.org, and you will see that big donate button and an explanation of where that money goes. So,
Thank you. And we're getting close to the end, so we're gonna wrap up soon. But while you were all in the ante room, sort of coming together, there was a heated debate going on that I walked into, and I immediately said, "Save it for air." And I'm curious, what was the discussion that I walked into as I was trying to get you people ready for a podcast?
we
What
were
you
having
people
like
arguing
3
about?
debates at
It was-
once and all talking over each other.
It was about Mel Gibson.
That's right.
And one of the talking
boy.
about favorite actors. And
And I know he's a major favorite actor of Mary's, right?
Now,
Was
let's
what-
see. This is where things spiraled
I'm
out
glad
of
this
control.
made the podcast, by the way. This is just like the ultimate.
And long story short, Marcus and I were discussing favorite actors one time at, over lunch or something.
I think
at
it
work.
was over lunch. Yeah.
And I said, I can't rank people, I can just start throwing names out there. So I'm saying, Jack Nicholson is up there. He's probably my favorite. There were a few others. And I said, and I will say this, but I want to preface it by
Just
saying
say it.
that,
Just say it,
no,
Mary. Just
I
say
said,
it.
I want to preface
Mel
this
Gibson
by
is the
saying
greatest
that
actor of all time.
I did not say
of
that.
all time.
Braveheart.
I said I want to make it very clear that I know he kind of went off the deep end and has said some totally inexcusable and awful things, and I don't condone that at all. However, the guy's a good actor, and I did not say my favorite actor. I didn't even say top 10. I just happened to mention his name, and then before I knew it, people in the office were saying, "I heard you love Mel Gibson." I said, "Wow, really? Thanks,
Let me
Marcus."
just emphasize that this conversation started because we were talking about the greatest actors of all time.
So then by definition, you would put him forward as one of the greatest actors of all time.
No. All right, Mr. Robert Downey Jr. is the best actor of all time.
No. I said
Robert
that I
Downey
would
Jr. is a
consider him a
phenomenal
top
actor.
5 actor
All right, that's
of all
Have you
time.
ever
ridiculous.
seen? No, not at all. Have you ever seen his non-Marvel works?
Well,
If
that's
you,
what Marcus.
Yes.
If you go back,
you two should go bowling together.
So
or something.
my argument was that you could make the case, besides maybe Marlon Brando, who I think is an actor's actor,
Wow,
that
we agree. Wait. Oh, never mind.
Marlon Brando. I mean, you could make the case that Robert Downey Jr. could arguably have been, and this is pre-Marvel movies, probably the greatest actor of his time.
Oh, I think he was
that
always
is
in the. I know.
You could make that argument.
Yeah, I think that's been a common argument.
His Charlie Chaplin, I think the Charlie Chaplin
Chaplin,
movie
yeah.
was absolutely phenomenal, and he's just a guy that I think, because of his past, I think his past had a lot to do with his influence in the roles he took. But don't give me that look, Mary. I know you're.
No, I don't like that you seem more reasonable than I do now.
Well, there's nothing you can do about that. He just is. I mean, that's what do you want? But I mean, the same thing can be said for Mel Gibson. I don't know if I'd necessarily put him in the pantheon of the greatest of actors of all time.
And neither did I.
But if you look at his work circa 1980 to circa 1996, 99, it's outstanding.
You had
I
Brave.
mean, it really
my
is.
case.
It really is.
He's
And
versatile.
his directing work is also up there as
Yep.
well.
Yeah.
That was my only point, Marcus.
I'd say he's the, and I mean, there are some correlations you can put between these two as well. But he and Clint Eastwood had a very similar arc, and then they both sort of had moments of pop cultural issues, and in the case of Mel Gibson, legal and sociological issues that occurred. But no, I don't think there's any argument. I think that is a perfectly valid argument that Mel Gibson can be considered in
He's up
the
there.
upper echelon of
Yes,
actors.
Yeah, he's
Though
an Oscar
since
winner.
Thank you, Mike.
But
so
we said
since
top-
The Patriot, I'm not sure. I can't think of any really.
Signs
great-
was a
Passion of the
pretty good movie.
Christ.
Signs, but that
Which
was
was
done
directed.
around. Was that 2000, 2004?
That was in
Signs?
2002.
You know what?
Yeah,
that was
okay,
a well-made
still-
movie.
that was
Oh,
a very
Signs was a great
That
movie.
was that was good.
Oh, as we're talking about the arc of entertainers, M. Night's had the same thing. I mean, his first, Invincible is not Invincible. Unbreakable is one of my favorite movies of all time. Completely underrated, but that's the one with
Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson, which is actually coming. A sequel is coming out right now.
A sequel to
Really?
it. Yeah.
I haven't seen
Which,
that.
by the way,
And I haven't seen Split yet, so I have to see Split so I can see.
Is that
Mr.
the one
Glass.
with the
So-
guy who has all those different personalities?
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, that was interesting.
So interestingly
I liked
enough,
that.
I saw a story about how somehow M. Night Shyamalan's movies all connect within the same universe,
I saw
in
the same thing.
time zone.
Yeah. I think that's fascinating. Yeah, that all of M. Night's movies are interlaced in some way, and not just because he appears in every single one of them as a different character.
I know what I'll be reading tonight.
Yeah, but he's had a late, because he was good. Now he's pretty good, and his beginning was pretty good, very good. His middle though, like Lady in the Water.
But
weird...
every director is like that. Every director is.
The
There's
Village,
always a
yeah.
rise and fall with directors because they can only do so many things that are exactly the same, and then they try something new and it fails, or more often than not, it'll not be as great as their previous work. So that's considered their lull time. But yeah, you look at all the. No director was perfect,
See, speaking of directors, you're talking
except
about
maybe Mel Gibson.
Braveheart, Passion of the Christ, Apocalypto.
Yeah, those are.
Apocalypto is underrated. I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
but that had me like sweating, like nail biting on the edge.
Well,
of
that's
my
because
seat.
Apocalypto
I'm sure
came out-
Marcus will disagree with me.
Well, Apocalypto came out
Apocalypto was bad.
after his troubles.
That's true.
So there was a tinge of that was part of it. But yeah.
By the way, you would actually appreciate this since I was talking about Robert Downey Jr. I saw a documentary on Mel Gibson's life about a month ago, and apparently he is very, very close friends, or was very close friends with Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
And Robert Downey Jr. was actually the one that helped resurrect his career, because at the time there wasn't a studio that would actually accept Mel Gibson's writing because of a lot of his, I guess you would call, lack of a better term, polarizing, ideas. So there was a connection there between Robert Downey Jr. and Mel Gibson.
Come to think of it, didn't they both appear? I think who was it? The young actress. She was in Taxi. She was in Contact.
Oh.
Why can't I not remember her name right now? She was
Not
in The
Foster?
Accused. Yeah,
Jodie Foster.
Jodie Foster.
Jodie Foster, yeah.
Jodie Foster was honored at the Golden Globes, and I could be wrong, but I am pretty sure I'm right that both Robert Downey Jr. and Mel Gibson were on hand to help her receive this Lifetime Achievement Award at the Golden Globes. And it was she got a little bit of pushback about it, except she's Jodie Foster, and who would push back against Jodie Foster? But she got a little pushback, not so much for Robert Downey Jr., but for Mel Gibson being there. And she said, "This is my friend, and this is my friend who has supported me through everything when many other people wouldn't support me. And he's been outstanding, and I'll be by his side till the end of time." And he has on several occasions come forward and said, "I was an idiot back then. I went off the rails. He had his issues. He's apologized repeatedly. I'm not excusing what he did, and he deserves all the hell he got for it. But at the same time, I have to admit that if someone makes an honest attempt to apologize for their actions, I feel a sense that they need to be given a second chance.
Yeah.
So since that time, he seems like he's been given a second chance. I'm just saying. I'm just putting that out there.
Mary
and if he
feels
screws up
so-
again, then he should be vilified
Mary
again.
feels so vindicated right now. She's just like,
You disagree that Mel Gibson is not a good actor?
no. I think Mel Gibson is a good actor. I think that.
I'm
Maybe
so
not
glad
Mount
this is
Rushmore.
being recorded.
I just think that the conversation we were sort of having was like, who's on that Mount Rushmore of actors, and Mel
then
Gibson.
it was a misunderstanding.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Probably.
He's definitely, I would put him in the top. He's definitely in the conversation of like top 20, I would say.
Yeah,
Of all time.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Maybe not top 4.
Has he won an Academy Award yet?
He won for directing. I don't think he won for acting. He won for Braveheart.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
and
that's
that
right,
was
correct.
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
well
yeah.
deserved. I didn't know that.
Oh, that was at that time.
That
That
was
was
such
epic,
a-
and that was also during the time period where actors were directing, and the Academy just loved it. So
Dances
The
with
music for that
Wolves.
movie is phenomenal.
Oh, I
sure.
know. It
In
makes me
my
want
opinion,
to
Oh, is
run
it
up the mountains of
James-
Scotland.
James
Yeah.
Horner, I think,
James
right?
Horner, yeah.
Who did Titanic. He did
Oh, I didn't know that.
one of my favorite underrated movies. I don't know if any of you have heard of the movie The Rocketeer.
Yeah.
1991.
Disney movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never saw
One
it.
of my favorite movies, but it bombed at the office. They never made a sequel.
Was that a Mel Gibson movie?
No, that was Jennifer Connelly was in it, but James Horner did the music.
Oh.
We're making those connections now.
Got
See,
it.
we're going from Mel Gibson to James Horner.
We got to tie it back to M. Night Shyamalan, and it'll
I
be
know.
full circle.
Well, he's like
Mel.
that.
Yeah.
Like the composing. Sometimes that's the best part of the movie. A lot of the.
Oh, listen, sound is incredibly important. I didn't see the movie, but amongst the reviews that I read for it, talking about The Quiet Place, the
Oh, so
absence of
good.
sound, that showed you how important sound is. The absence of sound really actually made it creepier to watch it. I haven't watched
That's
I
a
it.
wasn't
horror movie,
really,
right? Oh, I
I
wanna
wasn't
see
really
that.
a fan of that movie.
Really?
Admittedly, yeah.
You're right. He is contrarian, Mary. I'll take it back.
if it got over 80% on
Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes, Marcus probably doesn't like it.
He's one of those
Wow.
people.
Wow.
All right, that's good.
Wow,
I'm
I'm
gonna have a
sorry.
conversation
That
with you
was-
about that.
I did. There were a few things in A Quiet Place. I think I might have mentioned them here. There's that scene. I don't want to spoil
Whoa, whoa,
anything,
whoa.
but there's
No,
spoilers.
no spoiling. There's
I
no
don't-
spoiling
I
on
don't
this
wanna
podcast.
spoil. I don't want to spoil.
I didn't say you don't want to. You can't.
I'm not.
Okay.
There is a scene that is very Christian
This is feeling
in that
spoilery.
movie. I don't know if you know what I'm talking
I
about, Marcus.
know what you're talking
It's
about.
going to cover my ears
Yes,
at
I
this
do.
point.
I thought I was blown away. I saw it. I've seen it twice now. It stuck with me.
So I like the movie for the fact that John, I cannot pronounce his last
Krasinski.
name, Krasinski, yes, who's also the character from The Office,
Jim
which is actually funny. I
Halpert.
could not watch that movie without thinking.
Well, that's
of
yeah.
So weird.
It's an iconic role. That's right. That is difficult when certain actors become really so associated with the roles that when you see something else that they're in, you go, this doesn't feel right because I don't see Jim being this guy. But then at times you'll go like. It takes you out of it at the beginning, and then they're such good actors you get sucked back in again. Although, and okay, now stick with me on this one. I'm a huge Deadpool fan, and
Still haven't seen it.
You?
Oh yeah, I know. And I love the movies, and I'm sure they both get above 80%, so you won't like them. But Marcus, but so they're great anyway. So there's this new kid-ish movie that's coming out about the Pokemon universe, and so Ryan Reynolds voices the character of Pikachu, which is this cute little thing. And the thing is, the whole time I watched the trailer for it, I was like, why is Deadpool Pikachu? And I was like, that his voice has now become so ingrained in my head, I can't hear him. Ryan Reynolds will be the only voice I can ever think of as Deadpool, and therefore, anytime I hear his voice alone, I will think Deadpool is inside of Pikachu, which also would probably be really cool, and I think Deadpool would be into it if that were actually
Speaking
the
of
case.
Deadpool, I saw a petition now that Stan Lee has passed, rest his soul.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel fans want to see Deadpool make a cameo in every Marvel movie from here on.
I saw that same thing.
Wow.
I would completely be on board. I am still hopeful that someday the MCU will be fully integrated again, and all these characters could appear in all the same movies and not be.
Working on it. Fox, they bought Fox.
Yeah, but there's also the Sony elements as well. So there are certain ones that don't fall into that.
Spider-Man.
Yeah. So, but I saw that and went, yeah, that would work for me. I'd be fine with it.
I think it would be perfect
Yeah.
to have him in there.
I think so too. It had a certain comic because that was the thing. The Stan Lee cameos were always comic relief. It was like, I mean, even subtle, they were always comic relief. Mary's just sort of drifting off into space right
No,
now.
I was just
I don't know if I agree
thinking
with these
about
two
Ryan
idiots.
Reynolds.
Okay, well there you go.
Okay.
That's nothing
No,
wrong with that.
I
I think about Blake Lively all the time, so that seems fair. His wife. All right. If you want to think about Ryan Reynolds, that's fine.
Can I just wrap this up by asking, let's go around the table, favorite, do you have a movie or book that you read this time of year during Advent, Christmas?
Well, you want to talk? I really don't read books, so I can't say that. What are my other options? Book or what else?
Movie
Movie. Oh,
that you
all
watch
of them.
during this time of year.
Yeah, I have to watch all of the movies and TV shows that are Christmas themed, no matter what. So I have to watch, well, the ones that I like, that is. I have to watch the 1960s Grinch TV show. I need to watch 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, which came out in 1972, was animated. I've actually stopped watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer because I mentioned this last year on the podcast that now that we know that the Santa in that he's not cool. That Santa is uncool. That if you haven't watched it, watch it again, and you realize Santa's kind of a 4-letter word that I'm not going to say on the podcast, but that's kind of what he is. Seriously, you got to watch it again.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I was on the other night. Actually, there were a ton of memes.
Interested.
There were a ton of memes that came out that sort of reiterated the fact that Santa not cool. And then in terms of the movies, I have to watch It's a Wonderful Life. I have to watch Miracle on 34th Street. I have to watch Elf. And that's the only 3. Oh, and I have to watch White Christmas. There's a lot of watching. It usually takes place while I'm baking cookies, but there's a lot of Christmas watching I have to do during the holidays.
You got it all cut out for you.
I really do. Don't bother me in the evenings anymore.
What about you, Mary?
Oh man, it's a family tradition. Just like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, we watch on Thanksgiving. Every single year that I can remember, It's a Wonderful Life is the Christmas Eve movie that we watch.
That's a classic. You can't actually. You know what? In the town next to me, Pittman, their theater is going to be showing it in the theater. In the first 2 weeks for like several nights during the first 2 weeks of December. Huh. So I love watching those old movies that are real. Yeah, seeing it on the full screen.
I remember,
and I think it's with an orchestra. I think they're going to have an actual orchestra playing behind it. Yeah.
Oh, I would love to see that.
I got to find that.
Broadway Theater
really
in
cool.
Pittman.
Okay.
An advertiser of the Catholic Star-Herald.
There's something about that movie. I mean, as a little kid, I don't think I quite understood it. But then, I understood, the general premise. But then as I got older, I don't know, it just resonated more. And every year, I just start sobbing watching it. The scene where he's on the bridge in the snow and I'm not a praying man, that was when he was at the bar. All right, now I'm getting everything mixed up.
Well, you have to watch it again.
I gotta watch it. Yeah. It's been a year.
Man,
but that's
Mary,
my movie. That's my go-to movie.
Is somebody chopping onions here? I don't know. Thinking of that movie, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
How about you, Marcus?
Oh man, I'm gonna go with a lesser known Christmas movie that doesn't have above 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. There's a movie I've seen since I was a kid. It's called A Preacher's Wife. It's with Denzel Washington, Courtney B. Vance, and Whitney Houston.
That's a great movie.
And I watch that movie every year. It's so meaningful to me just because it touches on a lot of things that that I have been interested in as far as like the relationship of community and church essentially. And it's just such a great story. I think it was one of the first Denzel Washington movies I ever watched as a kid. I think it was that and Glory, which was a really good movie.
I love that movie too.
Yeah, that was an excellent movie. But Preacher's Wife, I always watch that. The other movie I watch a lot is Home Alone, just because it's a classic Christmas movie.
That's one that I always remember liking, and I never go out of my way to watch, and I don't know why. I think I'm doing myself a disservice by not rewatching it.
I could probably look back and try to think if there was another concept of a movie like that, and I don't think I could find one. It was like a very original kind of Christmas story, and it makes me laugh every time I watch it. So
that's classic.
Yeah.
Now, Pete, I'm going to answer for you. Your favorite Christmas thing to watch is Die Hard.
No.
Which we can all say is a Christmas movie, right?
Not according to Bruce Willis.
I don't care what he says. I say it's a Die Hard. I say Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
No, I've seen Die Hard a few times. Alan Rickman is a silver screen god.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He's great.
He would be he could potentially be in the top in the
Yeah.
pantheon of actors.
Over Mel
I'd agree
Gibson.
with that.
Yeah, and I would agree with that over Mel Gibson.
I agree with that too. Look at us.
If for no other reason that his role in Love Actually was so outstanding, which by the way I forgot to add to my list of Christmas movies I would watch.
Love
That's a good
okay.
one actually. Yeah.
Well, I would say my movies, I love Elf, but something I just remember watching as a little kid, I love the soundtrack, is A Muppet Christmas Carol. Big fan. It is the classic retelling of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. And it is great. If you know the Muppets, Gonzo is kind of the narrator. He's a Charles Dickens character. Kermit is Bob Cratchit. And here's another fantastic actor. Michael Caine is Scrooge. He's really one of the... There's a few live action characters like Michael Caine and a few others that inhabit this world with the Muppets. But it's just a great... I can say it's great. The music is great. Michael Caine is always...
I've never watched it. I actually saw it on my TV Guide listing this weekend, and I clicked on it, but it was during a commercial, so I clicked off of it, and I never went back to it. I had every intention of watching it, and never watched it.
I don't know. I
think I watched an old episode of MASH instead.
Well, Christmas... Well, the other thing, speaking of TV shows, the other tradition I've gotten into is watching... We're talking about The Office. They have The Office Christmas episodes.
Yes.
Those are like, you can go... I think Comedy Central had a marathon of every Christmas themed episode. I very much like
watching TV show Christmas episodes. Like that's one of my favorite things. I love it when a TV show does a Christmas episode.
We'll have to do
Now, what about the
SpongeBob
holiday
ones.
baking? Like Food Network does it.
Oh, I watch all the holiday baking things. But I won't watch them religiously. That'll be good. There's something else on other than a rerun of something else that I've already watched 6 times. But no, the holiday baking, and I like when they bring over the Great British Baking Show onto ABC, and then they do the Great American Holiday Baking Show. I love it.
Does my PHL still do the live Yule log? Remember that? They still do that.
But now even better.
Oh, I don't like those things.
but yeah,
I love
why?
Because we have a wood burning stove, we don't have a fireplace. So when we do gifts in the morning, I turn on the Yule log channel, and actually Netflix now has an hour-and-a-half Yule log with different musical accompaniment that goes with it.
It just seems so silly to me.
It is so silly, but it's awesome. I love
But
it.
people take it seriously.
Well, I don't know if I take it seriously, but I do. I appreciate the fact that someone decided to put a camera in front of a fireplace for an hour and a half and record it burn, and then threw music under it.
What about the ones that have puppies? Like the on-demand one, they have one with Yule log with just puppies around the fireplace, or
You
one
have
with
the puppies
cats.
burn? That doesn't
no.
sound cool at all.
No, oh my
Pete,
gosh!
you are
Merry
horrible.
Christmas, kids.
That'd
Horrible.
be the
You're big.
Halloween Yule log.
Yeah,
That's
there you go.
scary. But no, I mean they have the puppies in front of the fireplace, or another one has the cats in front of the fireplace,
no.
and just.
Mary, you could record that with
I was
Ollie
just
this year.
gonna say that, Mary. You could
My new
totally
puppy.
do that. Just put them in
in
get
front
a
of
tripod.
the heat register or the furnace in front of your house, or throw them out in this.
It was definitely going there.
Whoa.
We can watch them sweat. Nah, puppies don't
I
sweat.
very much look forward to Ollie in a little Santa hat, Mary. I want those pictures.
Yeah, are you going to decorate Ollie for Christmas?
If he'll let me. I mean, he kind of tears up everything right now.
Well, he's a
Mostly
puppy.
my shoes, but, that's okay.
That's what
He's
puppies
still a
do.
good boy.
Give him a little jingle bell around his neck. That's what we did with my cat. So we knew when she was coming, we just hear the little ring.
Mm-hmm.
She hated it, but we all like, oh, there's Hamlet.
Hamlet. Oh, that's cute.
I don't know which I feel worse for the cat for. That you forced the cat to wear a bell or named it Hamlet.
No, actually, funny story. We did not name her Hamlet. She was a cat from Seton Hall University. That was a fraternity cat. And 20-something years ago, when my sister was coming home from college, she brought home this little kitty cat in her bag. And we kept Hamlet.
Intentionally, or did it crawl in there itself?
No, she intentionally did. The guys
So she
at the
stole a
fraternity-
cat?
No, the fraternity said we cannot take care of this cat anymore. So she was very pregnant. She
Your
had
sister?
the babies.
Your sister?
No, the
The
cat.
cat. Okay.
Sorry. No, my sister was not pregnant. She came home with the pregnant cat,
Okay.
who was already named Hamlet, and she was the best animal in the world.
That's awesome.
She passed away, unfortunately, about 5 years ago. But
This story took a turn for the worse. All right. Sorry.
it did. It's well. What can I say, Mike?
Now we'll talk about Mel Gibson some more. Actually, no. We gotta wrap
It all
it
goes
up.
On
back
that
to Mel
note-
It's been a good hour,
Love you,
19
Hamlet.
minute
Thank you.
episode.
Mel Gibson
Oh,
in
boy.
Hamlet. He
What?
was Hamlet.
Yes.
What?
Like every.
We just made
Famous
that
actor.
connection there.
I didn't, but
It
I
came
just
full
did.
circle.
Well
That's
done.
all that
That's the best Hamlet
Kenneth
version, by the
Branagh
way.
was too.
That's a different version.
I
Mel
know.
Gibson's version was better.
There you go. I've never watched Hamlet ever in
Really?
any format. No.
No, but the
And the only
Hamlet,
Richard III I ever saw was the one with Gandalf. What's his
Ian
name?
McKellen?
Ian McClellan, yeah. Where it's a sort of a
Also Magneto.
reimagining and Magneto, yeah.
Yeah, and the other one, I think Ethan Hawke did a Hamlet version too.
Yeah, I didn't see that one.
So check this out. Shakespeare's awesome.
I've heard that. There you go. All right. Well, thank you both for joining us. Hey, we appreciate it, Marcus. You're back, and you're invited back
Thank you,
anytime
Marcus.
to
Thank you for having
to
me.
debate Mary on any subject.
First
So
podcast
that's
I've
great.
ever been involved in, and
Wow, this is awesome.
it was a very good talk. So
No,
thank you for
thank
having
you.
Not the last.
Thank
You
you
will
for
be
being
back.
here.
me. Awesome.
Yeah.
We
Awesome.
want you back. You too, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
She never wants to come on the podcast, but I think she always has almost a good time whenever she's here.
I agree. I think it's always. It's a jolly holiday with Mary. Is that what
Well,
Mary
That's-
Poppins?
okay, there you go. All right. See you, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.